With the release of Duelist's Advance, new Lunalights are entering the Yu-Gi-Oh metagame, but the way I play the deck is quite unique. Let's talk about it. Starting off with the main deck, I have 3 copies of the new Lunalight Gold Leo. If you're unfamiliar with the Lunalights, these cards are very good at making rank 4s. And Gold Leo, fresh out of Duelist Advance, aims to do just that as well. Gold Leo is effectively a Stratos with a bit of a different effect, which is relevant for some of our combos. Then I have 2 copies of Kaleidoshik. Back in the day, we saw this as an Armageddon Knight that sent for cost, because copying the effect was not prevalent for the rank 4 focused deck that was Lunalight Orcust. But now with the new support from Duelist Advance, we can actually make fusion monsters, so the effect to copy a name is actually pretty prevalent. However, Kaleidoshik's main use is still to be an Armageddon Knight for your deck. 1 Lunalight Yellow Marten. Yellow Marten is sort of like a Sephiroth, but also when it goes to the graveyard you can add a Lunalight spell or trap. Just make sure you're not adding Lunalight Perfume with Marten's effect. Believe it or not, this is not a Lunalight card. 3 copies of Lunalight's Tiger. I see some people now play 3 of this card and I don't think that really makes sense. It's a non-once per turn monster reborn for any of your Lunalights. And while this card does not do anything on its own, it's a very good card in tandem with any of your other cards. And the way that I built this deck is I try to overwhelm my opponent with a lot of Lunalights by spamming the board and going for the Protos lock. That way I need to ensure that I can see Tiger. And sometimes even multiples should he do something like MTPO7 and banish it. Then I have 2 of the new Lunalight Silverhound. In an XYZ based strategy of Lunalight, this card is not as good as it is in the fusion variant, but it's still really good to get your plays going. You just really have to be mindful about the fusion lock. But there are ways to play around that, even when you're not fusion summoning. And the last Lunalight is 1 copy of Black Sheep. For the non-Lunalight engine cards, I have 1 copy of Fractal. Tri-Brigade Fractal can be searched from Fire Formation Tenki, and when you send a Fractal from your hand to the grave, you can Foolish a Silverhound, that then can e-tail a Lunalight from your deck. This card also comes up in some OTKs where you make access code talker, but we'll talk about that when we get to the extra deck. 1 copy of Nemesis Flag and 1 copy of Archnemeses Protos. So the goal of this deck is to Protos lock them, and you can even Protos lock them through Nibiru thanks to the power of the Lunalights. There are many games where you get Mul Charmid and you just disrespect their hand traps and you just go for the Protos lock anyway. Because when this card resolves, it usually does not matter how many cards they have. That's it for the monsters. For the spells, I have 1 copy of Polymerization to search for the Black Sheep. Whilst not being a fusion version of the Lunalight deck, I still want to try to play the new fusion cards because they just give your deck a new layer. That way your cards have additional effects, even when the main game plans to make Protoss. Liger Dancer is still a very good card when you go second playing into a board, so I still want the option to have the poly play. 3 copies of Fire Formation Tenki. This card can grab any of your Lunalights as well as the Tri-Brigade Fractal from your deck. 3 copies of Foolish Burial Goods. Lunalights are well known for having a bunch of spell and trap cards with graveyard effects. And Goods is also a very powerful card heading into the metagame, as there is a particular trap card you can send with Goods' effect that can stop your opponent completely in their tracks. 3 copies of Lunalight Perfume. Perfume is a monster reborn and reinforcement of the army in 1 card. That is pretty insane. And you can finally legally search this in this deck with Perfume Dancer, hence the name. 1 Lunalight Masquerade. As I already touched on, this is an XYZ based deck, not a fusion deck, so Lunalight Masquerade being a Foolish Burial is not that good. There are plenty of ways to get your Lunas into the graveyard, so this card has severe diminishing returns when you actually play the game. So whilst this is a starter card, it is also highly searchable, so I felt 1 was enough. And the last Lunalight card is 1 copy of Lunalight Serenade Dance. Do keep in mind that Serenade Dance discards for effect, while Perfume discards for cost. So for some of your cards, like Silverhound or Yellow Marten, they need to be pitched for effect to get their effect, which is also something to keep in mind. That is it for the engine cards. For the non-engine, I have 3 copies of Mulcharmi Fuvalos and 3 copies of Mulcharmi Purulia. I decided to main deck the Mulcharmis because we're still in a metagame heavily dominated by Raisil and Mitsurugi. Should we have a shift in the metagame or a ban list that would shake things up, I would consider cutting some of these to play other defensive cards, but right now they're really good. The Mulcharmies are also level 4, so even when you go first, you can use these for a rank 4 in a pinch. 3 copies of Forbidden Droplet. This deck struggles quite hard with dealing with a detonator, and Droplet can also be used to just pitch away some of your cards to get those graveyard effects into the graveyard. And with a lot of +1s like Tenki, the Droplet is usually pretty good to activate, without costing you too many cards. 3 copies of Triple Tactics Thrust, and 1 Talents. I decided to main deck the TTTs because they're very good when you go second heading into a board, and when you go first you can still set something like Blackout Laughs with it. Because as a 20 hand trapped deck, I don't think Lunalight is very good. I think this deck is way better to be played as a combo deck with breakers, similar to Manadium or White Forest. And with a ton of viable spells for when you go second, the Frost is really good to search them out. 1 Call by the Grave to stop their hand traps, as well as the Murakumo and White Binder. And the last card is 1 copy of Blackout Laughs. I think the Blackout Laughs is a very underrated card in this format. As a trap, it's a pretty good non-engine, but what about when it's in your graveyard? You can banish the Blackout Laughs to call something like Topologic Bomber Dragon, or Malice Whitebinder against a Malice deck. Against Ryseal, you can call Detonator, or Murakumo should it be on Mitsurugi. So what the Blackout allows you to do is stop these very annoying problems for your deck. As the Lunalight deck is a rank 4 spam deck, you're trying to flood the board with monsters and push through their board that way. So a board wipe, multiple pops, graveyard banishes, or another board wipe is very annoying to play through, especially when they're not once per turn. And as the Lunalight deck has a lot of ways to discard cards, I could even see myself playing multiple copies of Blackout Laughs. Because for example, Gold Leo can just discard it. Another point on Blackout Laughs is that you can send this card to the graveyard with Foolish Burial Goods. If you don't need goods to send Serenade Dance or Perfume to act as a starter card or an extender, you can send Blackout Laughs to have it be non-engine. You can also use Thrust to immediately search goods into Blackout Laughs, or to search or set Blackout Laugh and then send it off to the graveyard with something like Forbidden Droplet. This powerful pair can completely remove their Murakumo and their Detonator, all in one go, and you can do the same thing as Malice by calling Whitebinder and negating their Bomber Dragon, leaving them with little to no interruptions, particularly when you Mulcharmied them. So I think the Blackout Laughs is a very powerful card in these board breaker-esque decks, and I encourage you all to pick up these when they next get reprinted, because then the price will probably be the lowest point that it'll ever be at. Likely coming in the 2025 Megatons. For the extra deck, I have 1 copy of IP Masquerena, 1 Cross Sheep, 1 SP Little Knight, 1 Tri-Brigade Fergit. You can summon Fergit with Fractal's effect, and then with Fractal, the Fergit, and another monster, you can make Access Code Talker. 1 Access Code Talker. Despite only playing Link 2s, this card still goes up to 4300 attack, which along with the Liger Dancer is 8100. It's also just nice to threaten their board. Or if you steal a Malice Link with talents, you can immediately link it off into Access Code and try to push for game. 1 Eclipse Twins. This is how we beat Nibiru, which we'll talk about later. 1 Baguska. 1 Emerald. 1 Banshee. This is how we get to Protos, so we use Banshee's effect to search flag from our deck to the hand. If we haven't normal summoned, we could just normal summon the flag directly, but you usually special summon this by returning a banished card to your deck. And how do we do that, you may ask? Well, Lunalight Yellow Marten actually banishes herself after you've used the effect, if she were to leave the field. So you can link this off or fusion it off, it will then be banished and then await in the banish zone for your Nemesis flag to return it. Should you have overlaid with this or it just didn't get banished for some reason, then you can also make SP Little Knight and banish a card from your graveyard. And finding the free attributes for Protoss is very easy. During your main combo, you access light, dark, and fire monsters nearly every single time. And thanks to Eclipse Twins and the fact that this is a rank 4 spam deck, should your opponent nib you on Banshee, you can make a Twins and then summon her back. Should your opponent nib you on Flag or Protoss, well then you can make Dugares and bring it right back. So despite not putting up a negate in this deck, you can always Protoss lock them through Nibiru, which is pretty crazy. So 1 copy of the aforementioned Dugares, 1 Tiger King. Tiger King can negate your opponent's entire field as well as set a Tenki from your deck to the field. So this is how you access the fractal in pretty much every single combo. One copy of Zeus. You could argue Zeus is a bit of a dated card, but there wasn't really another option that I wanted to have in here. But this is probably one of the most cuttable cards in the extra deck, should you need the space. And for the Lunalight fusions that you hopefully never have to make, one Perfume Dancer, one Liger, and one Leo Dancer. For the side deck, I have 3 copies of Droll and Lockbird, mainly against Mitsurugi or other decks that like to search a lot. Just do keep in mind that Droll conflicts with the Mulcharmies. So a play that I usually do is if I open a Mulcharmy, as well as a Droll and Lockbird, the best way to sequence it is to actually drop the Mulcharmy in standby phase, irregardless if it's Prulia, Fuvalos, or Meowls. The reason for this is if they have Call by the Grave or Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, they would need to chain it right there. So then if they first action activate a search spell in main phase, you can immediately Droll and Lockbird them. I've had so many situations where if I play Ryseal and I activate a 7th Tachyon to search an ice from my deck, my opponent then Fuvaloses me on the ice, and I just negate it with Call by the Grave and Ash. And then they have a Droll and Lockbird in their hand after the fact, so I get to summon a Ryseal from my deck and get a search absolutely for free. If you open Droll and Lockbird and Mulcharmies, always drop the Shummies in standby phase, because if they have these counterplay cards, you really want to be able to drop the Droll in main phase, without being scared of it conflicting. 3 copies of Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring. If I go first, I need to take out the Mulcharmies for something. I don't think Ash is particularly a great hand trap in this format, and the way I built my deck is to be a board breaker deck. But I still want to be able to negate the Mulcharmies post side. 2 copies of Artifact Lancia. Currently this is at 2 in my side deck because of space constraints. 1 Harpy's Feather Duster. If I'm playing Frost in my deck, I always like to have Duster as a searchable option to just clear away their back row. It really helps against Labyrinth or other trap strategies, as well as any deck siding in a bunch of Solemns. And for other Frost targets, I play 1 Mischief, 1 Sanctum, and 1 Dimensional Barrier. I think D Barrier is the best catch-all, because it hits Memento, as well as White Forest. But this could also be DDG if you prefer it. And last card is 3 copies of Dominus Impulse. I really like Impulse against Mitsurugi, because you're able to stop the ritual spell. But more importantly, you can also hold this card for your turn, and either use this in your turn to stop their prayers, or if they go for the granite play, you can use this on Nibiru, which can make your life a whole lot easier. And that is it for the deck profile. If you enjoy my content, make sure to also subscribe to my second channel, linked in the description box down below. There I'll be posting more personalized and exclusive content.